Welcome to the Talk and Chatter experience powered by Gasoline Alley Harley Davidson and M33 Productions. For all your photo and video requirements, get in touch with us today. My guest today is Tony Quinn. Tony has been a leader in the motorsport and business arena for the past few decades. When you sit down to chat with Tony, you know you're going to get an authentic conversation from a natural-born storyteller. In this show, we discussed everything from racetracks to dummy spits by other motorsport racers. When you accomplish as much as Tony has, it's very difficult to get all the stories within 2 hours. So this is part one of many more to come on this journey with Tony Quinn. I hope you all enjoy the show. If you get the chance, head over to YouTube and hit subscribe, give us a rating and review on iTunes, and we'll be back with another show very soon. Welcome, Tony Quinn.
Welcome.
Hey, thank you for coming in.
Welcome myself. Yes. I'm here.
Thank you for coming in, firstly. And who's Tony Quinn?
Wow. You might have to ask me mum who Tony Quinn is, but who Tony Quinn's become. I was pretty clever at school, but I never went on to university because my dad offered me a job in his pet food factory for wages. Up until that point, I'd worked in his pet food factory for nothing, during school holidays and that. But then when he offered me wages, I thought, that's a better idea than no wages. So I never actually went to university. I wanted to be an architect. Well, that's what I thought I wanted to be. But anyway, I never did that, and I carried on, worked for my dad for a couple of years, and as usual, teenagers fight with their parents and argue. And, my dad sort of lost his temper with me one day and said, if you think you can make money better than me, you go and do this. And he gave me the shittiest opportunity, knowing that most people would fail, to teach me a lesson. And as history would prove, I actually made a huge success of the opportunity he gave me.
Wow.
And subsequently, he always said and claimed that I had the Midas touch. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but certainly most things I've done, and I've had a fair share of failures, to be frank, but most things I've done remarkably well at. And people say, well, how do you do that? And I don't have pink fairy dust or a silver wand that I wave. It's the old adage, it's just the harder you work, the luckier you become, or the more you accumulate. I consider myself as a conservative entrepreneur. And by that I mean I don't mind taking risks, but they've got to be calculated risks. And, as I said before, I've seemed to have done all right. And it's only on reflection that you can compare or you can sort of analyze what you would have done better or differently or whatever. And in all honesty, I don't think I would change a thing in my life.
Wow. You've had...
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but you asked me who Tony Quinn was, and I didn't even answer that question. But I'm a law-abiding, tax-paying citizen that's lived in 3 countries and worked in 3 countries. I've never been taken to court for any skullduggery. I've never been taken to court for unfair dismissal. And I just seem to have just got on with life and the challenges that it presents.
You're not aware of this at this point in time, but through a mutual friendship that we've had, I've worked alongside in some of your businesses over the years. Oh. And the advancements of certain things, obviously through pet foods and obviously the go-karting facilities, Darrell Lee. You've been able to, your business has advanced as well. Like, I'm in an automation engineering background, and it was always ahead of the curve for the businesses as well, which was something different. Is that something you've always focused on?
Look, honestly, I don't claim to be special at all.
Yep.
I simply apply logic and just effort. Logic and effort. Does that make sense? I suppose it is. It's like that's what you do, and you don't do the same thing twice if it didn't work the first time.
No.
So you tend to try and move on from all of that stuff, and like all of the things that you've heard and read about and listened to. about surrounding yourself with good people. That is a number one golden rule. You pay the same money for an idiot to work for you as you do for a good person to work for you. And then you can always pay the good person more to keep them there. And so, I think because I'm a working guy, basically, I understand effort and reward. I understand that quantum. And it works for us simple humans, and particularly males, who are more simple than females. So it kind of works.
It does. It's a basic recipe, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, mate, there's an old thing, keep it simple. It's absolutely true.
Yep.
Yeah, just keep it simple. I've had consultants that have come and tried to, wangle some business out of me. And in all honesty, they end up learning more than I was to learn from them. It's like, I don't get it. It's like, keep it simple. It's not complicated. Life is not complicated. People make it complicated. Children don't. I'm a grandfather now of 9 grandkids, and I've also got, through split families and stuff, I've got about 20 young kids that call me Popeye. And I love them to bits. They're absolutely awesome. It's the adults that are the problem. The kids are fine.
Well, we've got a basic program when we start with, don't we? We don't make the process hard until we get old, like older. So, that's what I feel anyway. Because
absolutely,
the map you get's pretty bland.
Well, I say to people, in simple terms, when you're born, if there's a God, he deals you some cards.
Yep.
Right, and off you go, play the game of poker or whatever it is. Some people are really good at playing poker, and some people aren't. Some people don't realise how to play the game.
Yep.
So it's really just life is about playing the game of poker and, getting through and winning, if that's the aim of the game. Which I say to people, that's why humans have evolved, because we challenge each other. We want more than the next guy. We always want to do better. And I think cockroaches don't. And that's why cockroaches haven't evolved, in a million years of the same. When they look in the mirror, they just see another cockroach in the mirror.
Yeah.
Whereas I think when humans look in the mirror, they want to compare themselves against somebody else and want to be better or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Mind you, I can't really speak on behalf of cockroaches because I don't really know. I'm just assuming that cockroaches are cockroaches.
But you've been in the industry. You've been through the industry. Well, no, maybe it is. But
maybe it is.
How did you like? We're talking about motorsport stuff and that too. But
yeah,
I'd love to sit down with you for years and just talk to you about other stuff within the industry and that. How did you make pet food fun?
How did I make it? There's no fun making pet food.
Yeah, but it looked fun as an outside person.
Oh, well, but that's just marketing or
right.
spin or image or whatever. I mean, I was the guy that created fresh, chilled pet food in Australia.
Mm.
I mean, there was, in New Zealand, there was fresh, chilled pet food, been there for years, decades actually, but nothing in Australia because Australia was controlled by Nestle and Mars, who were heavily involved in canned pet food and dry pet food, and they did not want anybody doing any other category of pet food, and it was very difficult for me to crack that, back in '94 I think it was, when I went to see Woolworths, and I don't ever script anything. Not even going to see the big boss of Woolworths or Coles. I would never script anything. I would just play the game as it was, as it presented to me. But it was a fair ask when I asked Woolworths, who were heavily promoting Woolworths, the fresh food people, when I asked them to maybe change the slogan to Woolworths, the fresh pet food people. That was a big ask. It never happened, obviously.
Haven't seen that.
It was cheeky enough to get their attention. And, it's like anything. There are 3 things in business, and I tell this quite openly, that people need to know about business. The first thing is, in business, you need to have a brand. The brand is where the value is. It's where your reputation is. It's where if you eventually sell your business, that's what the person's buying is the brand and the process. The second thing is, which is very, very important, and which a lot of people fall short on. And in retail world, there's an acronym called DIFOT. And DIFOT stands for Delivered in Full on Time. In other words, if you're making swimming pool fences and you say you're going to be there next Tuesday at 10 a.m. to put it up, you make sure you're there at 10 a.m. next Tuesday. You will then get a good recommendation to their friends and people, and your business will grow and it will prosper. If you spend half your time making up an excuse as to how you can't be there next Tuesday, which happens such a lot in Australia particularly, if you can break away from that and actually deliver on time in full, you will be a successful business person. The third thing, of course, is margin. There is no point in being in business if you're not going to make money. You're just an interference. You're a road bump. Why are you there? Why are you doing it? So those are the three things. You've got to have your brand. You've got to deliver, and you've got to make money. And it sounds simple, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's actually,
Yep.
If you don't get those three right, you're not in business. You're not going to succeed in business. And by succeeding in business, I mean, I don't even know the term. It's not quadrupled, it's gazillioned or whatever, my investments in certain things. I mean, today, for example, I'll give you a crazy example. Today, because I have fingers in many pies just because it's what I do. I invested in a small food company 4 years ago, invested $1 million into it for 50% share. Today we had an offer for $44 million. I also have a phone call at 11:30 from an international food company that wants to buy another company that I have. And I don't say that happens every day, but that's the result of strategic thinking, positioning, marketing, the whole deal.
Yep.
How do you make pet food look like fun? On reflection, it's fun. Day to day, it's a challenge.
Right.
And those are the things that you're paid to do, is to overcome those challenges.
Makes sense.
Well, I know people would wish there was some button that you press or a code or some iPhone app that you get that tells you how to do it. I don't think it's there. And the interesting that I find interesting is that when I mix and mingle with people of a similar sort of journey in life and have made great things or even done great things, it's a very similar journey.
Mm.
They start as an unknown and they work their arse off and they go above and beyond where any man's been before or whatever.
Yep.
And they create something that people want and people think they should have, and they become very humble with their success. Most good people are quite humble because we haven't quite figured it out why we've done it and nobody else has. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
Why didn't somebody else do fresh chilled pet food and go from investing, having fucking 200 grand in the bank to selling it for 400 million? And here's a good story. I sold VIP Pet Foods for 400 million, kept 10% of it.
Right.
2 years later, we sold it for $1 billion. Now, people say, oh, do you not wish you'd kept it and sold it for $1 billion? No, I don't. No. The time was right to sell it for 400. Yep. Invest in good things, invest in things that you know and understand, and you'll do well.
So you're someone that doesn't look back at it and...
Not at all.
Just keep going.
Not at all, mate. No. The fear of looking back in motorsport is that you don't see anybody behind you, which obviously means you're last.
Mm.
So you don't want to be looking back.
So you bring it back to that.
Always look forward.
What was your first day of motorsport?
My friend in Scotland was a mechanic for Vauxhall, and he was 10 years older than me. Right. But I actually, as a young fella, I liked mixing with older people. Mm-hmm. I didn't really have many friends that I can remember that were a similar age. I liked older people. It was a better sort of journey for me. And that's it. Harley Davidson stand. It's all right. It adds a bit of background noise. It's fine. But he said, he had an Escort Mark 1, GD 1300 or something. And there was a gymkhana in our local town, village thing in Scotland. And we both went down, and I won the gymkhana. I think I was 13 or 14 years old or something like that. But it was, look, honestly, it was just a gymkhana, in and out of cones and stuff. Because I could drive when I was 10 years old. I used to drive, tractors and shit like that. Like lots of young guys, That's what we did. So at a very, very early age, I did that. And then, of course, I've always been competitive, so that was a plus. And then I bought a Formula Ford in Scotland. Geordie, who was my mate, Geordie, he convinced me to buy this Formula Ford, and off we went. And the very first race I entered, and I would have been, by this time, I would have been 17 or something. It was at Ingliston, which was the only track in Scotland at that time. Knockhill wasn't built then.
Right.
That's how old I am. And I went there, and there was a lot of Formula Fords there, and I fucking qualified second. But nobody, I can't even tell you how I didn't win the race or anything, but I qualified second, and I have no idea how I did it. It was a good car. It was a Merlin, 69 Merlin, I think it was, and I still have it to this day. I gave it to Geordie when I left Scotland, and then I actually had a Formula Ford then that belonged to the Franchittis, who I know.
Right.
And I took that car to Australia, but I left the old car in Scotland, left it with Geordie, and said, "Here, you can have it. I'm on my way."
Yep.
And he said it was the worst thing I ever did to him, because, of course, he took it out, drove it, and got hooked. And he actually ended up winning the Scottish Formula Ford Championship. Not in that car. But so he blames me for costing him a fortune to go racing.
Getting into motorsport.
But I don't know if I've answered that question when first day in motorsport. Yeah, that's what I remember. I remember the Formula Ford qualifying P2 and people saying, who the fuck's he? Where did he come from? And I enjoyed, I didn't do, because I was working quite hard at that time too. And I wasn't really keen to make it a career. I thought it was good fun, but I enjoyed making money as well. And motorsport was spending money, and the turning point for me in motorsport was in Scotland at Ingliston. It was a Formula Ford race, and to give the listeners a bit of an insight. In those days, there would have been 30 to 40 cars arrive for the practice qualifying, and only 24 fitted on the grid. And so it was only the top 24, or the best 24 that got to race. The other guys had to go home. And I remember thinking, all these guys that are in their 30s and 40s, what the hell are they? They're too old to go racing. And I'm thinking, well, they shouldn't even bother coming. But yeah, anyway, this guy was there. He appeared this day. He had an American accent. He was a handsome man, young fella, he was a bit older than me, and but he just won something in Italy. But we didn't care. Like, no interest to us in Scotland. That's that's the Italians, Christ. And the cameras were following him about a bit, So he was obviously some. But they gave him a car, a Crossley, which was an Irish Formula Ford, not a great car, average car, Anyway, the first race, he absolutely blitzed us. And people need to understand that in those days there was no Motec or data or anything. We basically just drove these things. We could adjust the ride height and rake and stuff like that, but really you just drove these things. There wasn't even adjustable shocks or nothing like that. Oh. And this guy never been to the track before, and he blitzed all of us. The second race, away he went, and we were catching him. And I don't know what was going through the other guy. I mean, I was, I think, in about third or fourth, and Stewie Lawson was second, and Stu ended up on top of this guy across the finish line. Because at Ingliston, the finish line was on a curve, would you believe, back in the day. And anyway, his name was Eddie Cheever, right? Now, Eddie went on to F1, and Indy and stuff like that. And at that moment right there, after that second race, something inside me said, you are not going to make this your career. You're just, whilst you're good and you won prize money and stuff like that, you're not good enough to make this a career. So I actually remember going, well, I need to fucking focus on something else. And so I virtually walked away from it, basically. And I was making signs then, so I dealt with the oil companies, and there was a massive oil boom going on globally back in the late 70s. And a guy from Chevron, which is BP, I said to him, where are you guys going next? Because I want to be where you guys are. Wherever the Americans are going, I want to be, because you make good money. And he said, we're going to Australia. We're going to Perth, Western Australia. And without any Google, Wi-Fi information, going to the library or whatever, I went home and said, okay, we're off to Perth, Western Australia. And that's true. And one of the craziest things I did was follow through on that. The wife at the time was 7 months pregnant, and we just took off. And I spent 4 years in Perth, in hindsight, depressed, clinically depressed. If that was today, and you went to the doctor because you just didn't know what was going on, you're a bit foggy, you would be prescribed some depression pills or whatever, because I left something highly successful and vibrant and bloody really booming to come to Australia. And to be honest, the oil guys never came, and when they did come, they came to Port Hedland, and which is 2,500 k's away. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't Perth.
And War Elephant.
So and so I actually ended up going right back to basics and ended up mowing lawns, actually.
In Western Australia?
Yeah, I was called the Lawn Ranger. Yeah, which was a bit of a cowboy thing back then. But it's all in my book. I don't know where you want to... Just you jump in wherever you want to go. But later in life, much later in life, everybody has got a great story to tell. And, it doesn't matter if you're highly successful or whatever. The most valuable thing that you will leave your family and descendants is your story. Right? It doesn't need to be a book. It can be a diary. It can be a few pages. It can be whatever. But that is the thing that will live on for the next 50 years after you're dead. People will want to read what old Uncle Albert did and how he fucking got here and what he did for a job and, all of that stuff. And so I decided when I was in my late 50s to write a book, because my grandfather, who was Irish, was in the IRA, which is the army that fought the English. And in the 70s, they were naughty. They were bombing each other. I don't think he ever was a bomber or anything, but he was definitely in the IRA. And when he died, there was no record, or there was just a few vague stories about what he'd done and what he'd got up to. And so I thought, what a waste of a life. He died, and it didn't leave anything like silver spoons or anything. He just died, and then his story went with him. So I was determined. I actually spoke to my own dad at the time and said, God, we need to write this down, because we've all had interesting lives. Even if you think you've had a shite life, you've probably had quite an interesting life to your family. And so I decided that I would write down my story, and not a book, but a story. And I couldn't do it myself because I didn't have time, and I didn't have the proper skill set. And so a Red Bull magazine did an article on me at Highlands in New Zealand, and it was such a good article. It was probably one of the best articles, because when you speak to media or journalists or whatever, they quite often don't get the right story, and they delve into your past, and they Google you, and they take bits from there and add bits on. It's kind of a shortcut to the story. But anyway, this guy called Robert Ty, he did a great article, and I phoned him up and said, mate, that's a really good article, well done. Would you be interested in writing my story for me? And he said, well, a freelance journalist. I don't know what that means, but yeah. So we actually, it took 18 months, and we had a meeting every month or 3 weeks, and revised and went forward and bits. And during the process, Robert had thought it was such a good story that more people should hear about, and so I said, it's not really, that's not the purpose of it.
Yep.
But anyway, he went to Penguin, and Penguin said, nah, it's just another motorsport story. It's not about motorsport. It's like 20% about motorsport. The rest is about, life and things. And anyway, it got released, and I kid you not, mate, it was the bestseller in New Zealand for 6 weeks.
Wow.
Back, it must be about 5 years ago or something. And still to this day, people come up and talk about the book and stuff like that. So that's one of my life's secret things that I've done that I'm really proud of. And again, I can leave my children, grandchildren, people on the street, $1 million, $10 million, whatever it is, that won't last. More often than not, that'll disappear, and it'll cause trouble and all the rest of it. The thing that will survive is the story. And that's why everybody, I believe everybody, doesn't matter what walk of life you come from or whatever, to write down your story, because so much happens to people in their lives that needs a little bit of explanation, because future generations go, well, why didn't he bloody just go into the desert and find a lump of gold? That's what everybody did back then,
We'll make a TikTok video.
There you go. I mean, honestly, as you heard, I was just on the phone to Mad Mike before, because he's actually building a drift car for me. That's a bit of a secret thing. You're the scoop. You got the scoop there. And he's got a very interesting story. He is a great guy, and I admire him a lot. And I said to him, how do you make your money? Like, how can you survive in this terrible business? And he survives with YouTube stuff, videos. I don't understand it, so I wouldn't profess to tell people how to do that. But yeah, he, I think he's got 1.8 million followers or something, and he keeps them alive. And I've spoken to Mad Mike quite a bit, and helped him out quite a bit throughout his career. And our latest project, and I don't think I'm telling any stories here, but his young son Lincoln is going to be a superstar, and I think that's where Mad Mike is putting most of his effort into at the moment. Yeah, and it's important for someone like Mike to have a future plan, because motorsport, like most professional sports now, it's a short gig. You either end up on the bloody streets or on TV or radio or whatever, but it's you've got to work hard at it, even when you stop playing football or whatever. The work doesn't stop.
And the lifespan, like you look at Jamie Whincup.
Mm-hmm.
He's around my age. He must be 37 or something.
Yeah.
He's retired from full-time racing.
Yeah.
Like I think this is the start of that turning point of, like, Dick Johnson was racing mid-50s, like, in the supercar world.
Yep.
Now Jamie Whincup still at the top of his game. It's such a short stint.
I know, we had many discussions about that.
I can imagine you do, because obviously you've got an interest in that. But it's intriguing, isn't it? Because it's like a changing point of that too. It's such a short span where you get to succeed.
Absolutely, mate. And obviously it's part of his story, right? I mean, people would look back and go, why didn't he keep going? He could have kept going, But no, that's his story. And he is a good guy. Not just, obviously he's a great driver, but he is a smart cookie, and that's one of the reasons that I'm happy with my investment in Triple Eight. I think we're going to do quite well with Jamie at the helm. I think it'll be fine. I mean, we all know the first mistake he makes, geez, the media is going to come down on him.
Sure.
But that's where I'll try and support if I can or whatever.
You don't get to succeed like that without being smart.
Well, I mean, I think Jamie, like any great sports person, you have to come to the game with an edge, right? And if you look back, I think Jamie came to the V8 circus with the edge of being a triathlete. Every day he would swim, run, and cycle.
Yeah.
Now, guys, his peers, like say Russell Ingall, he wouldn't go to the bloody gym. Russell wouldn't go to the gym. No chance. Paul Morton, I'm not doing that. So Jamie came into the V8 ranks as an athlete, like as a separate athlete, if that makes sense. And that, I believe, that's where he had the edge on everybody. Nowadays, everybody's doing it.
Yes.
So that edge is gone, right? So somebody, the next, Shane, if you look at Shane, I mean, he's just a country boy that can bloody drive. He's the young Jim Richards. He can drive anything at any time for anybody. He just wants to drive it.
Yeah.
And he's such a talent, and he can obviously feel. And his dad is a great driver as well. So, I think Shane's kind of got the edge now. Scotty McLaughlin, he's got the edge. They're all good drivers from P25 to P1. They're all good drivers, but you just need to have that sparkle or something about you.
Do you think, like, as a driver yourself, and that, do you think the seat time, like you look at Shane, gets to drive so many different vehicles? It's got to help, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think if it's your job, if you're a builder, the more houses you build, you've got to get better at it, haven't you? Or, you're a plumber, the more toilets you plumb up, you'd be bloody smart at. We're on to the toilets already. I tried to avoid toilets.
Yeah, I've seen your stuff. The Toilet King. But I did watch. I watched a news piece about Highlands Motorsport about the bathrooms. I haven't been there yet, but I was over at the Burt Munro Classic. In 20, just as we got struck down, just as you guys had come back from South Africa. And we were trying to get to there, but it was pretty flooded through the back of Dunedin across to... So...
Yeah, I mean, New Zealand is God's own country. Honestly, I love it to bits, and I think it's a great place. The weather's great, the people are great, the food's great, the toilets are clean. I mean, what else do you need in a country? But obviously we can't get there at the moment. And, with Highlands, I just... there's a whole story with Highlands, but basically I got asked by 4 original investors who had spent 7 years getting resource consent to build this racetrack, and they were going to build a little track with a tin shed thing just for club stuff. Yeah. And I said, well, if you sell your rights to me, sell the land and sell all the work that you've done to me, I'll build you a track that you'll be proud of. And, I think at the time they thought, because they had spent 7 years and they were all exhausted. Yeah. And so I was a new blood coming in. They wanted me to be a shareholder, but I'm not a good partner like that. That's very few people can keep up. Mm-hmm. So I said, look, honestly, you guys come with me for the journey, but, I'll make it happen. And we built Highlands in 12 months. Wow. And it was just incredible. And there's lots of funny stories with Highlands. And I mean, the one that sort of puts it in context was this thing came out of the ground and nobody knew really who Tony Quinn was. And there was a lot of doubt in the village, because Cromwell at that time was a small town. Right. Big village, small town. And who's this guy? Who the hell would do that? Drug money. It must be drug money or tax evasion, or he's a dodgy character, whatever it was. Because all those stories were proved to be totally, untrue. And as it was coming out of the ground, all the doubters were being proved wrong and stuff. And then, of course, people change, don't they? They say, I knew that was... I've spoken to him. I know all about him. I've met him at least. The big bandwagon. And Motorsport New Zealand came to me because this is the most unusual track that was built for a long time. And said, look, see what you're doing here, but you haven't applied for a licence. And I said, I don't really want a licence. I don't need a licence. And they said, but how are you going to have races? I said, I don't care. I don't really care for races. I'm just building this thing. It's going to be fun, and it's going to be like a golf course, and I'm going to have members. I think that's how I'm going to do it. If I want to go racing, I can go to the other racetracks, or I race in Australia, I race in the Nurburgring, go to Sepang, Dubai, Spa. I can go racing there. This is just my thing. This is a thing I'm building at Highlands. Beautiful place. Anyway, they said, "Oh, look, you're doing quite a good job. It's 4 kilometres. It's just ideal. Do you think you could put, an application in?" And I said, "Well, how the heck am I going to get a license?" I said, We're going to go through the forest, not just once, but twice. We're going to have a bridge and a tunnel. Well, that's just not allowed anymore.
Yeah.
And we're going to be, part of the track is going to be 25 metres from a lake. How are you going to pass all that? And anyway, they took it on board, and I applied. They said, so long as you there was a certain part of the track that was only going to be 9 metres wide.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, look, if you can make that 12 metres wide, track C we call it, we can have a look at the application and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, that's what happened. But then the license permit thing for the track, they didn't actually give it to me until after the first race meeting.
Really?
Yeah, because I think they were scared that something was going to happen, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Risk averse. But ever since then, of course, Highlands has been an absolute pride and joy to own and operate. I have marvellous people there that do a marvellous job, and it's actually spawned what's known internally as the Popeye legacy, and that's then spawned the Academy at Hampton Downs, and now the TQ Foundation in New Zealand that is set up so that it'll operate long after I'm gone, to help and provide a pathway for young Kiwis to aspire in motorsport in many different forms throughout the world. And so that's where, in case anybody's wondering where I'm going to hide my wealth or whatever, that's probably where it's going to be looked after, that whole thing, when I'm dead and gone. And now with the 3 tracks in New Zealand, at Hampton Downs and Taupo as well, it's just a marvellous legacy to leave. And I feel very privileged to have had that journey.
Was that your first racetrack?
Highlands?
To invest into?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I've never been a great one for homework, and I was clever enough at school, but I never did a lot of homework. And it's the same in business. I can go into a factory or an environment and smell if it's successful. And as we came up the stairs here today, in the Harley Davidson shop, I can smell. And we talked about the atmosphere and stuff, and it's very good, and you can immerse yourself in the business, and it smells of success, and that's a good thing. And so I just thought it was a good idea to build a racetrack in Cromwell. There's a bit more to it than that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's and then obviously Hampton Downs came second.
Hampton Downs came second, a distant second.
Yeah.
Hampton Downs was $35 million in debt.
Wow.
And the bank, like most racetracks, most racetracks, I don't know how to say this, but a lot of people build racetracks for the wrong reasons in the wrong place because their choices are limited. And all they're doing is thinking about racing. If you look at Highlands, it's a racetrack, but it's a tourist attraction that has the odd race. It has I don't know, 3 or 4 races a year. I don't even know.
Yep.
But it has 500 members that enjoy the facility.
Yep.
And we have tourists coming in and out. We have a museum. We have all sorts of things, go-karts. We have all sorts of things going on. So it's built for the business. And Hampton Downs is nothing other than an industrial racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
That has 90 acres of industrial land around it that it owns, that will be sold and will pay back the track 3 or 4 times. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So you've got to have another reason for having a racetrack, I think. A commercial reason.
For sure.
You can have a passionate reason. And, we swing back into Queensland Raceway, purely commercial, purely just, it's a track that's been that's been poorly looked after. We're going to invest in it, bring it up to standard. It'll make return on investment, but it doesn't have land to sell or anything like that. But I just couldn't stand by and let it go the way it was going.
With racetracks, and you've been really upfront with everything. So throughout, does like you obviously own the complex, but is that on like a lease from the? How does that work?
Is this Queensland?
Say Queensland Raceway, for instance. Like, is that like 100-year lease, but you own that?
Yeah.
everything?
So I mean, when you lease stuff from the government or council or whatever, it's basically just, well, in most cases, it's a land lease.
Right.
So you lease the land, which usually comes with quite a small rent. I mean, QR's 50 or 60 grand a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the rent for the land that you sit on.
Yeah.
Everything else that's on the land belongs to you.
Okay.
Now, the trouble with a racetrack is it's very difficult to take that away with you when you leave.
Yeah.
So basically, you need to get on with the landlord, they need to get on with you, and it needs to be a good relationship, and on it goes. And eventually, it would end up back with the Ipswich City Council if me as the leaseor decided not to carry on with it,
Yep.
and nobody wanted to buy it or whatever reason, it would just end up back at Ipswich City Council.
The time comes that everyone's just doing esports and then
Yeah, but if you look at horses, right?
Mhm.
We all used to have horses riding about the town and up and down the hills and stuff, and horses would never be replaced. And it took a while, but they were replaced. But horse racing is still a massive business,
For sure.
and employs a heap of people. So I think having a venue that you can go and challenge yourself and Mother Nature and the forces of physics, safely, has got a future.
and never be replaced.
Yeah, I mean, it's very important if you're in business. I remember when fax machines came in to vogue. I said, "What's the point of that? There's no point in that. You just pick up the phone and you order whatever you want, and just do it by phone." "Oh yeah, but it saves you from all that wasting time about saying how's the weather up and bloody such and that, and how you doing. Saves all that time." And I said, the day that we can't be civil and social to each other is a bad day for humanity. So faxes will never work. But they did.
They did, yeah. Look what we've got to.
I don't get it right all the time, see?
Yep.
You know,
Okay.
I'm not 100% man. I'm a 95% man.
I like something you said before about Highland Motorsport Park was you said about golf courses, and when you're talking about it, that's sort of like the idea, isn't it? A little bit like
Yeah.
people that play golf take really a lot of pride in their facility.
Yeah.
It's a membership base.
Yeah.
Sounds exactly the same as a racetrack.
It is, and some of our members like playing golf as well, and they're a member at Michael Hill's place down the road. But it's just a different kind of membership, and we are fortunate enough to have a lot of Kiwi superstars, global superstars, that all make themselves available if they're back on holiday at summer. They're very keen to come and talk to the members and give them updates and stuff like that. So the member, it's more than just it's a good club. It's a special kind of club that the people enjoy, and the membership model in New Zealand is the most important element at all of our tracks.
Wow.
It's not keeping the FIA happy or having the local, Auckland Car Company jamboree, whatever. That's just an event. The most important element at our tracks are the members, and they know that, and they're told that.
Yeah, I can imagine it'd be well spoken about.
Yeah.
With the New Zealand per capita, they put out some stars, don't they?
Oh, it's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Honestly, but so I've been fortunate enough to live and work and succeed in 3 countries. Scotland, where I was successful, I worked there, grew up there, lived in New Zealand for 9 years, and I've lived in Australia for over 30 years. I love New Zealand. I love the people. They're very much a can-do race of people. And I think it's because they can't go out into the desert, dig up a mountain that they never planted and nurtured and watered and looked after. They harvest this mountain and sell it off overseas for huge money and huge royalties, which is a great asset for the government. I mean, really, it's an awesome thing. In New Zealand, they got to work for every dollar they earn, as a country.
Yeah.
And so it just changes the attitude and the behaviour of the inhabitants, really. And that's why I say they're a can-do race of people. And, you give a challenge to Kiwi and they'll put their heart, they'll do a good job. And so I think that contributes to the per capita. How do they do so well? It's no different if you look at the Olympics. Australia does really well at the Summer Olympics.
Yep.
Does really well per capita. Does a great job. And in Australia we invest in tennis, we invest in most sports. We don't invest in motorsport much at all. But in New Zealand, there's been a long tradition of wealthy Kiwis. I'm thinking Sir Colin Giltrap, who's supported everybody from Scott Dixon to Hayden Pat. He's supported everybody personally.
Yeah.
And really, the TQ Foundation is an extension of that, not taking anything away from the Giltraps. A great job, PJ, Kenny Smith, all these guys that have done a great job in the past. But what I've tried to do in New Zealand is give them a formal roadway that a young kid could actually follow and be helped. If they've got the skill and the attitude, they can actually have a path, 50% predetermined for them. The rest is up to them. Dick Bennett is a good friend of the membership at Highlands. He was Ayrton Senna's team manager. He's got West Surrey Racing in the UK. And it's a phone call away.
Yep.
Liam Lawson, who's the latest prodigy that we've sort of sent off overseas, he's going to be a Red Bull superstar, I'm sure.
It's just having those doors just
absolutely.
open, doesn't it?
And like we were talking in the beginning, like surrounding yourself with good people, it's so important, and delivering. There's no point in a door opening and you don't deliver. Yeah. And that's when the responsibility gets transferred to the participant,
When you were building the first facility, what venues did you like? You obviously seen other venues around. You've been to lots of races.
Yeah.
What was good?
We'd driven lots of racetracks around the world, and obviously, people say, what's the best track in the world? There is no doubt in my mind that it's the Nurburgring.
Yeah, right.
It ticks every box. So you do the 24-hour Nurburgring, which we did 5 times. And I still think we're the only Kiwi Aussie team to finish in the top 10. We finished 9th twice, I think it was, which is a monumental task to do. And we were fairly recognised with that in Germany. We were quite well known in Germany at that time. Because I don't know if you know, but the last hour of the Nürburgring 24-hour, each top 10 guy gets about 10 minutes of national TV. They do a lap, following them in the last hour, the top 10. So we were well known in Germany. This black car with the yellow paw prints on it, the VIP car. So the Nürburgring is an awesome track. You couldn't build it today, but because of its heritage, it's awesome. And a lot of the other tracks have got good corners, although I find that a lot of the modern tracks are way too sterile, way too boring and fast, to be honest. And like you bring back Oran Park, like going over the dog leg at Oran Park and up into that, the last turn. That was a great corner. You didn't know what was on the other side, and you knew what was kind of there, but you didn't know what was going to meet you on the other side.
Yep.
And that's why we built Highlands the way we did.
Wow.
We wanted to incorporate it as an absolute challenge. And I was so honoured about, I guess it must be about 5 years ago, when totally uncoerced or unbiased or whatever, Shane van Gisbergen was asked, what's the best tracks in the world? And he'd driven Spa and Nurburgring, all that stuff. And he voted Highlands as the number one. Now, that didn't cost me a penny. I didn't pay for that or anything.
Yeah.
That wasn't bribery. But when you drive Highlands, the good thing about it is that every corner you turn round, you see a different view. There might be a spaceman with three spacemen standing out of a spaceship, or the mountain view with the snow on top, or
wow.
the lake. It's a magnificent place, and I'm so proud to have created, or fluked, whatever you want to call it, created this marvellous thing. And I remember we did the first 101 there with the Australian GT guys, and Mark Coffey, who was the Ferrari team boss, I saw him in the corner, and he was just gazing into the horizon. And Mark's from Melbourne, of course. And I said, "What's up, Mark?" And he says, "Mate, how long has this been? I didn't even know this place existed."
Wow.
He said, "I've travelled all the way to Europe and all around Europe." And he said, "This is 3 hours from Melbourne, and what a beautiful place. Like that central Otago is just beautiful." And another compliment was Stefan Rattel, who's the boss of GD3 Global. He was there. He's been there a couple of times. And he stood up at it was his turn to talk at the FIA conference in Geneva or whatever it was. And he stood up, having visited Highlands that year. He stood up and said, "Guys, if you're ever in New Zealand, you must go to see Highlands."
Wow.
Yeah.
In front of everyone.
So, yeah. So those sort of moments in time, have a big impact on me. Just as I suppose it's just kudos, it's certification that you're doing the right thing or whatever it is.
Yep.
It's a real pleasure to be involved in that and get the bulk of the credit for it. Although there's there's a marvelous team that works with me and alongside. So
now with motorcycling over there,
yeah,
it's big. It's a big community.
Bloody dangerous. I mean, let's just be frank here.
For sure.
Motorcycling.
Just as one starts.
Yeah, but that's fine. I just think you guys are crazy. I just think I watch them on the track, and I go, oh my God, and I like going fast. And I just did the Target, High Country Target, just at the weekend here, and we're doing 200 k's an hour. Big gum trees and the side of the road, and I'm thinking, this is a bit stupid, which it is. You start thinking, wow, what are we doing this for? But equally, I think motorbikes, God, guys, it's just you got a leather suit,
That's it.
on. But I must admit, I think that motorsport has done a reasonably good job of recognising issues, and I don't know where the motorbike guys are with the that things that blow up on their backs,
the airbag suits. Yep.
Man, if that's not compulsory, it should be. I mean, I think that's a great thing. And if my son was motorbike racing, absolutely, it would be the first thing I'd buy him, or my grandson, or whatever, because I just think you're very brave, going out in a 1000cc motorbike or whatever it is, or even a 500cc motorbike. And going at the speeds that they're going and tilting it in and scraping their knees and elbows and stuff. I take my hat off to them. I could not do it. Mm-hmm. I couldn't do it. And the guys that can do it, good on them.
But you don't despise motorbikes, do you?
No, look, it's these comments come up.
Yeah.
And they're quoted from people that have never met me.
Yeah.
They've never listened to me. But yet they come out with these statements. And you see it all the time on Gogglebox, or Google or whatever it is,
yep.
or on the website, whatever. Got all these people having an opinion that seems to gather momentum. Not at all. Motorcyclists are very important to the success of a racetrack. Let's make no mistake about that.
Yep.
They are a very important ingredient that leads to the success and the prosper. To help a racetrack prosper, you need to have motorbikes. Absolutely. Now, Highlands doesn't have motorbikes, and that's not by my rules, I think go for your life. If you think that's what you want to do,
Yep.
have a crack. But I think it's just the general community are just, to be honest, scared because they just think, no, we're not going to go around there for 3 laps without having a major accident. So they choose not to do it at Highlands. But at Hampton and Taupo, very big cycling community, and obviously at Queensland Raceway too. So no, cyclists are, motorcyclists are most welcome, and a very important part of the business for sure. And to that end, we've got Australian Superbikes coming in March, I think, and long may that continue. And certainly with Queensland Raceway, people say, "Oh, you're going to change the track? You're going to change?" Yes, we are going to change the track, mainly for the motorbikes.
Wow.
We're still going to... It's very difficult to change the track at Queensland Raceway because you're bound by the amphitheatre thing that you've got. And to go outside of the boundary, you would have to cross the Ebenezer Creek, which, some estimates are between $6 and $10 million to build a causeway over the creek. So, for the 1 in 100-year flood that could happen, type thing. You know how it goes.
Wow.
So that restricts that length of track being grown, but it certainly doesn't restrict us from making Queensland Raceway more challenging for certain types of vehicles, motorbikes mainly.
I rode there Sunday.
Yeah.
So I did track day on Sunday afternoon there.
Yep.
Because it's still fun. That's the thing. People...
Well, it's a common thing. Like, people come up and say, "Oh, it's a boring track," and I say, "Oh, so you've got the lap record?" And they go, "No." I said, "Well, how the hell can it be boring until you break the lap record?
Yep.
Don't tell me it's boring, because you obviously haven't achieved that lap record status yet." And I said, "There's a good reason why the 2 top V8 teams in Australia practice there. And they can take the learnings from Queensland Raceway and adapt it for every track in Australia. And that's why the 2 top teams practice at Queensland Raceway and do very well everywhere else." So, look, I think, and I know myself, I've been raced there in a fast car. There's plenty to do, and it's not boring, right?
Yeah.
In a slow car, I can appreciate that, it's kind of slow, or boring. I get that. Hence, if I can just sort of try and explain it to you. So turn 1, turn 2, because the motorbike guys quite like them.
Yep.
And then after turn 2, go through the dipper.
Mm-hmm.
Do 4 and 5, because they like them as well. And then from 5, turn left and do a flip-flop back onto the straight out of 3, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then back through the wiggly bit at the bottom and back on.
The shortcut.
Yeah,
there.
the shortcut.
Back into 6.
Yeah. But we'll make that shortcut piece first gear hairpin.
Wow.
Yeah, so you'll have to do that. So that, I would imagine, I think plans for that are probably September, October.
Yep.
For this year.
So
and then we're also putting in the lights. Look, I'd love to go to the government and say, "Give me 30 million, like Sydney Motorsport part, and I'll put in some lights."
Yep.
I won't have time for that, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
If they can keep up, that's fine. But we'll put in lights that are appropriate, and we want to grow the nighttime activities at Queensland Raceway starting in September this year.
Wow.
So I think there's a great opportunity there, particularly for young people and working people, to enjoy their hobby or whatever, maybe in the evenings. And the Friday night drift thing is quite popular when it happens. The roll racing on a Saturday night is quite popular. And let's be honest, it does take a certain element off the streets of Ipswich particularly. But we can grow that into jamborees or whatever it is, and a big disco boombox. I don't know. I mean, it's not for me, but I'm certainly into making the business appeal to a larger crowd.
So the lights that are currently there, I did a track day of a night time there in October. It's going to be a lot better than that.
Yeah, it will be better, but I can promise you it will not be like Sydney Motorsport Park.
Okay, yep.
I actually think I've raced at Sydney at night,
Okay.
and I think it's awful. I think you may as well just come on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, right.
There's no night element at all.
Is it that bright?
Yeah. I've raced at Nurburgring, obviously, and
Yep.
Spa and all these places, and at night it's night, right? It's not.
Yeah, it's
there isn't a light to be seen.
Yep.
And that adds a fantastic element for me, a fantastic challenge. But I get that we should have some lights, but it will not be bright, starky lights. It'll be a challenge.
Yeah.
If you don't want that challenge, don't come at night.
It's quite simple, isn't it?
Yeah,
For
mate.
people,
There you
like-
go. We're back to the
Yeah.
same thing. Keep it simple. It's pretty simple, and you know, it's all right for authorities to come and say, "Oh, you've got to be at so many lumens and this, that, and everything." That's fine, but we actually have to entertain the competitors and whoever's watching the competitors.
Yeah.
That's more important. Yeah, but equally important. Put it like that. It's got to be safe. Whatever we do has got to be safe. And the older I get, the more relevant that statement becomes. When you're younger, you're obviously, you know, you're not aware of you're not aware of death. To be fair, you just don't think it's coming to you. And as you get older, you get so disappointed because you know death's coming. And you want to try and avoid it if you can. So you start doing things that are less risky.
Yep.
And that's just Mother Nature's way of letting you continue to breathe.
It's like a protector.
Yeah.
Natural
mate,
protector.
Yeah, and you know, like, sadly, we've had a couple of deaths at Hampton Downs during my sort of reign, both on motorbikes. And that's just the risk that the motorbike guys take. It's just, you know, they should know that if something happens on the bike and they're set loose or whatever happens without an airbag, suit, whatever it is, that should be, I don't know if is it compulsory?
No.
It should be, mate. I mean, we're all forced to wear, and it's a good thing. You know, we've all been forced to wear seatbelts in cars. I mean,
Hands
I grew
device.
up. Hands device, absolutely. And whether it saves lives, we can't be for sure, but we know it could. And it's the same as the halo on the F1 cars and every other single-seater car. Absolutely. You know, I mean, we need to move at great haste to make these things happen, not just have another committee meeting about it. It clearly has the potential to save a life, so why wouldn't we do it? You know, like, I think people, the authorities, whatever it is, they really need to look at what they're doing there and maybe have a finance program. If it's, if people say, oh, we can't afford it or whatever it is, you know, it needs to form part of the ticket to join the circus, you know.
It's an interesting thing because you just got Motorcycling Australia licenses as of this week.
Yeah.
Now, to go through those hurdles is usually quite a process. As a rider, I'd think my process would be just as hard. I think your gear, I don't have to jump through hardly any hurdles to ride on a track, but a track has to jump on so many hurdles to have the track. Makes sense to take your own ownership of yourself sometimes, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, again, we're in a race suit, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've been at places where guys jump in cars without race suits and helmets and stuff like that. And usually there's somebody else sitting with them that's the same attire.
Yep.
And they go out and they don't drive around at 50 k's an hour. They're showing off or they're doing whatever they're doing. It's a risk. And predominantly they're younger than 30. Or at least 35. They're younger than that. And that's what I'm saying about getting older. You know, the reality is that it's coming. The Grim Reaper's coming. But this is not a depressing subject. It's reality. And everybody should try and avoid it as much as they can.
How'd the hurdles go with getting different license systems into the track?
Yeah. Look, there's always a discussion.
For sure.
And to be honest, sometimes it's a pissing contest, right? Yeah. It's as simple as that. common sense should prevail. Sometimes it doesn't, because the pissing contest gets out of control, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality of dealing with authorities. And, I have every respect for what they do, and they're doing their job, right?
Yep.
But my point to them, and I'm certainly not going to flout any safety laws, and I get it, right? I absolutely get it. But here's me. I'm so bloody... I'm contradicting myself here, because I go and do these target events, like tarmac target rallies.
Yes.
And we have been known to have a few fatalities from time to time. Now, whose fault it is? It's quite often, just self-fault, or, unfortunate circumstances or whatever. But if you look at that, we close our public road, and it could be anything from 5 kilometres to 40 kilometres long plus. It's FIA certified, sanctioned. And I know that every track that I own, the inspector comes every year, walks every metre of every track, and has something to say about every corner at every track, right?
Wow.
And it usually ends up costing you a bit of money, because you've got to do something, right? And that's fine, because you're continually improving the situation. But I say to them, how can you explain to me, and I don't know if I'm going to get into trouble here, but how can you explain to me, I go and do target events, 20 kilometres long. You guys haven't even walked it. You haven't even stepped out of the car. You might have driven through it. There's culverts, there's farm gates, there's big trees, there's creeks, all sorts of things along that road. And yet, and I don't want there to be, because it removes every bit of the challenge. How can that be? How can you use the laws for a circuit versus the laws for a rally stage? And a gravel rally stage is the same, but generally speaking, those cars are travelling a bit slower.
Yep.
And look, the Targa guys are doing a great job, and I'm not picking on that at all. I'm just saying that's the stark contrast that exists.
Yeah.
But the tarmac, we're all, we've now got a new imposed maximum speed. We've got restriction zones before dangerous content. So we are working towards it, and I'm happy to contribute to all. We all do, actually. We all have our say, to be fair.
Yep.
And we're slowly making it safer and safer.
What's the max speed at the moment?
It's 200. It's just become 200. So in New Zealand, it's been 200 for 15 years, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe more. And in Australia, we've only just done it this year. I've been a supporter of that for at least a long time, but there was a fair bit of resistance from generally sort of the younger semi-pro guys not to restrict it. So anyway, look, we're moving on, and we're improving it, because if we don't improve it, somebody's going to stop it.
Yeah.
And we don't want that. We don't want to be all living in bubbles with all wearing the same clothes and same hairstyles and stuff like that. So no, I'm not having that.
Because it is...
We'll all be cockroaches.
Yeah, just look at each other. Because it's target, like those target street-style events, pikes, rally, they're outlier events. It's not something everyone would want to do, even as a competitor. A lot of people would, but it's on the edge.
I don't know if you know, but I've done Pikes Peak 3 times just recently. And that's it. I'm not doing it again.
How come?
First of all, I've got a fear of heights, right? A real fear of heights.
Mm.
And it really surprised me that when I went over, I think it was in June, and I went over in May just to have a look, because I said to Harry, my chief mechanic guy, I said, I don't know if I can do it, mate. I think I'll have to stop halfway through and just stop. Anyway, I went over and hired a Mustang recce car and went up the hill. I thought, this is not bad at all.
Mm.
Got up at the top of the hill and got out of the car and was breathless walking to the cafe thing.
Yep.
And I thought, oh, this is a bit different. Coming down is worse than going up. Because going up, it's basically, you can choose to look over the side, or you can look at the blue sky, which seems to be, it's just blue. It's fine, and you're looking up and onwards. Coming down, you can't help but look ahead of you, and you see bloody Arkansas in the distance, and Alaska on the other side, and there's hairpins. Ooh, Jesus! So coming down's a lot worse than going up for me. Anyway, the first year we did it, and this is something that people would not understand. In fact, Mad Mike's doing Pike Peak this year, and so
So is that who's building your car?
Mad Mike's building a car for me to drift.
Yep.
But he's building his own car for Pikes Peak. Yeah. And what you don't understand is that the first 2 years that we attempted to do it, we ran out of brakes. Because, and people say, well, you're going uphill, why do you need brakes? Well, the reality is there's a fair few hairpins, and you do need to brake all the way up at certain corners. And so we ran out of brakes because the air just does not, the density of the air just doesn't have the same effect. So your brakes overheat, and it boils the fluid. Even the CRF, Castrol, whatever it is, the special fluid, it boils it. So we actually had to, the first year I stopped halfway, I ran out of brakes. And the second year I ran out of brakes, and I don't even think I made it to the finish line. But the third year we had worked it all out, and instead of having 3-inch ducts going to the brakes, there were 6-inch ducts going to the brakes, to keep them cool. And I reached the top, and it was 9 minutes 52.7. I remember that, and it was just such a great feeling because not many people do it under 10 minutes. And I said, that's it, I'm out, I'm done, I don't need to come back here. And I love it, and I love the Americans, love the whole thing, but it's like having that last ski run, it's the thing that you just don't do.
Yeah.
And there's a bit there that it's called the bottomless pit. I don't know if you've been up there or you've
I was there your first year.
Oh, were you?
16, yeah.
All right. It's just scary as. I mean, honestly, it's a massive drop. And if you go over the edge, you're not sitting here doing this podcast. There's no way you're doing that.
No.
So, I mean, and it actually gets very fast and bumpy on the last section after the bit they call the Devil's Playground, because what happens in the winter is that the road, it all freezes, 6 feet of snow, and the road freezes, and then it's a thing called frost heave.
Okay.
And so the road actually moves just as the ground freezes and then melts again.
Yep.
And so the asphalt gets a wee bit bumpy. So up the very top where it sort of plateaus off, and actually there's a bit that goes downhill, it can be really bumpy. So I think each year you've got to set up the car a wee bit differently. And to put things in perspective, when Sebastian Loeb went there and took a minute off the existing time, he spent a month there, 30 days solid, with helicopters, 30 engineers, all sorts of gizmos going on. He was up there every day, but he did a marvellous job. And nobody knows, but the theory is that the car had active suspension, and with a GPS it changed the suspension for every corner and stuff like that. So that was an amazing feat for him to do that. And when you see the in-car footage, it looks so easy, but I'm telling you, he did a marvellous job. And then when I was there, the last couple of years I was there, Romain Dumas was there with the Volkswagen electric car, and took another minute off Sebastian's time. So it's buggered now. I mean, nobody with a petrol engine's ever going to do any better. But that's just progress. And no, that was a great event. But I'm sure you're not going to ask me, but I'm going to tell you. The best motorsport event as a competitor is the Nurburgring 24-hour.
Yeah.
The best motorsport event as a casual competitor is Goodwood Festival in England.
Yep.
And I did that a couple of years. I did that the last year before COVID. I had 2 cars. I had the Pikes Peak car there, and I also had I own Michael Schumacher's Benetton, 91, I think, Benetton. And they were having a Michael Schumacher festival, and I was privileged, I drove that as well. And it's an amazing thing for anybody that's interested in motorsport. The people, everybody that's anybody is there, and they're all willing to talk to you. It's a fantastic village festival feel, and nobody's got any point to prove. We're all there because of some reason we've done well in some discipline or whatever.
Yep.
And the public are there, and we all welcome it. And it's just an amazing thing. And I remember when I drove the Schumacher car up the hill, there was René Arnoux next to me, and Jackie Stewart was next to him, and then all these other guys. It's like, that's just, that's the best event that I've ever done. And of course, one would love to emulate that in some fashion or other at a track like Lakeside, for example.
Yes.
But that's a bit of a journey to get to there. And it's actually convenient because, like in New Zealand, our summer racing series is in January, February, and that's when Europe sort of shuts down. And so in New Zealand, we have plans to have the historic Grand Prix at Taupo, and invite some of these Europeans and Americans to come down and enjoy the Kiwi culture for a month or so. So
that'd be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Leadwood Festival?
Yeah. I was there the first or second time. I had my Nissan GTR, the Targa car.
Yep.
And it's great. I mean, Rod's a good soul, good guy. Interesting stories, full interesting stories. And Rhys Millen helped me a fair bit at Pikes Peak.
Right, yep.
Not in the first year, not on the second year, but on the third year.
Gee.
Well, I think it's like any sport.
Competitors.
Competitors,
Yep.
he's not going to help you. But I'll tell you a funny story about Leadfoot. So we went to Leadfoot, and he did a great job. And his wife, Christine, I think she's an American, Californian, and she's just full on catering and snacky things and
Yep.
all that entertainment stuff, right? And we're all there, and we're all mixing and mingling and having a nice time down at the barn. There's a red barn, halfway up the thing. And we're all enjoying the evening. It was a summer's evening. It was nice. And then in from the gate, like, say, half a kilometre away, we see these 3 motorbikes coming in. And it genuinely looked like Hell's Angels or something coming in to disrupt our proceedings, right? And nobody said it, but everybody was thinking it, right? Jesus, this is the bikies coming in. We're going to be in trouble here. And a little fella like me, I'm heading to the back of the crowd because I don't want to be the first one to get into trouble. And they came right up, and they were Harley Davidson bikes and chopper things, and loud and brash, and came right in amongst the crowd, and think, oh, here we go. It's all on now.
Yeah.
And they jumped off and took the helmets off. And one of the guy was from ZZ Top.
Wow.
I don't know their names, but he was the guitarist or someone from ZZ Top. And so then these 3, it wasn't the whole group, but it was one of the guys who knows Rod quite well.
Right.
It was mates. And they went up, and they were the band for the night that played the song.
Wow.
Those kind of things don't happen at Queensland Raceway yet.
One day.
Well, one day. I mean, we're building a corporate level out there.
Yes.
That I fully intend to, use for casual events. Dinners with stars and stuff like that. Because, we can pull a few favours from a few people. And since my investment in, I've known Roland Dane for 10 years, say. But since my investment in Triple Eight, I've got to know him a whole lot better.
Right.
And a whole lot more. And, what a fantastic human. With a fantastic story, connections, and ability to make things work. And, an evening with Roland Dane, and I haven't even asked him, but, an evening with Roland Dane would interest so many people in so many ways. Not just talking about his Bathurst win or whatever it is. He's a car dealer in England, and the people that he mixed and mingled with there, and how he's got on through life. I find that very interesting. I know that most people find that interesting.
And that was like myself talking to you today. I have a list of certain things I wanted to touch on and that, but a lot of it wasn't motorsport, the stuff I wanted to talk to you about, the original It's the same deal. Like everyone's got a life story, don't they?
Absolutely, mate. And that's, I'm telling you, write it down. And don't tell any lies.
Yeah.
Like the rule is, you're not allowed to use it as a tool or a spiteful weapon or say something that's not quite right. And I think that would be the wrong thing to do.
With Queensland Raceway, we'll touch on that because I don't want to hold you for too long as well.
Did you say Queensland or Queensland?
You're not going to change it, are you? It's probably my poor speech. But yeah, Queensland Raceway. Yeah. In the last 6 months, I've been there more than I've been there in lots of years. Obviously, we've got ASBK coming up in 5 weeks' time, I think it is.
Yep.
The teams have come back to go testing there. It's changed so much. I did a track day in October, and then I just did one on Sunday. Going through the gate the first time in January again to go to the test, the touch has changed already to go there, hey?
Yeah.
There's a lot of work.
Yeah, look, I mean, it wasn't a high platform that I had to build on. Like I didn't have to compete very hard to make an improvement. And, John was a friend, is a friend. He's a bit of a strange character, I find. My impression. He gets a bit strange sometimes, and we've had breakfasts and lunches, and we've talked about racetracks and how to run them as a business and all the rest of it. And we've had an opposing view on lots of things. And John doesn't seem to see the things that I see when I go into a property. So I cannot expect any customer of mine to put up with substandard facilities. I mean, that's just inhumane. At this point in the centuries, we shouldn't be doing that. I mean, people should have a decent facility when they come, and particularly when they pay to be there. It even makes less sense to not provide something decent. So, John sold it to me for $12 million. I don't mind telling people because it's the truth. $12 million. I'm going to spend $10 million on it before we hold our hand out to the state government for anything else. I couldn't be bothered, to be quite honest, but I've been advised that's what we should be doing.
Yeah.
And I think the important thing too is that it remains Queensland Raceway. I'm determined that it stays that way.
Yeah.
Because when I'm dead and gone, it should still be Queensland Raceway.
Yeah.
I mean, I might have a few signs that say Queensland Raceway just for a bit of a giggle.
Just on your car.
run a competition or something, But no, I think it belongs to Queensland, and I'll do my bit. And I'm going to have a big open day, probably July, I would think, where we'll invite just people.
Yep.
Can come and see. Competitors can come. People can come. Children can come. I don't really care. People can just come and see what they've got in Queensland Raceway. And I think, if I can not talk too ahead of myself, I think the Ipswich City Council are going to make some pretty big improvements to the precinct.
Right.
Because they've actually seen how bad it really is. As a precinct, it hasn't been loved. The drag strip just got some federal money to improve their infrastructure and some bits and pieces. I think the roadway needs to be looked at. The signage at the front needs to be looked at. So I think we'll see some investment from Ipswich City Council into making the Ipswich Motorsport precinct into something that they should be proud of, and the people, the local community can be proud of. And as I said before, if we're going to build a nighttime evening event structure for next year, it needs to be better lit, it needs to be better signed, all that stuff. Yeah. So I think they're pretty keen to do that because of the push forward that we're doing. And everybody wants the V8s back.
For sure.
And I think I think the V8s want to come back too, because the demographic that we get out there is V8 stuff. That's what they want to see.
It's their core, isn't it?
It's their core, mate. And I think it ranks quite highly in the V8 business model, as far as gigs that they can make a return on. So
Yep.
I think we'll see them back. I'm pretty sure that they'll be back. I mean, they're a different business now to what I haven't met the new owners. But I'm sure they'll be as commercial as the last ones. So we'll just have to see what happens there. And I think we'll get, because of the situation, I think we'll get more support from Tourism Queensland or whatever it is that we can help lure them back.
Because it's one of those things too, like we need circuits to race at.
Mm-hmm.
The V8s, most of the venues are not circuit based.
Yeah, and that's a problem for everybody. And it's maybe just a phase that we're going through. Certainly, I think when you're talking spectators, you can get a hell of a lot of people into a street race that were just passing by or whatever it was, and the hotels are there, cafes are there, and everything else. But it's not convenient for the people that live there. I mean, I lived on the Indy track. I've just moved into the old folks' home at Sanctuary Cove.
Wow.
But I lived at Paradise Waters for many years, and it was an absolute friggin' disruption when they were doing the track. So I'm not sure that that's got a long life span. And if you look at in America, NASCAR and stuff, they don't need a street race. They've got big ovals and stuff. And I think with TikTok and apps and Google and everything else that's happening, this 360 camera stuff that's been talked about inside the cars and stuff, spectators, big thing. I'm not, so the big thing for street races was spectators to get the tickets in.
Yep.
And we've seen spectators dwindle, if we're truthful, over the years, right? So maybe the model's going to be different in 10 years' time. I don't know. But if we look at Queensland, we've got Townsville Street Race and Gold Coast Street Race, which are both great events, and I've raced at both of them. They're all good, but the longevity of them, I'm not quite sure. But, of course, we need to have somewhere to go. So, hail Queensland Raceway, hopefully.
Did you ever get to drive at Darlington?
Wow, I've got a few funny stories, but I'm not going to tell them. But yes, I did, but only, not drive, but just, I think it was a BMW. I just took around, it was a Targa car, actually.
Right, yeah.
And old Tony, he was a bit of a character. And young Tony's a character too. So, he was an interesting character. I was present, and Tony Cochran and Wayne Caddick were having a discussion with old Tony about the whole thing, and they had Tony Cochran and Tony Stevenson had a big blue, for want of a better term. Tony Cochran slammed the door shut, went out to the car. Wayne Caddick was trying to cool things down, calm things down, and Tony was on the horn of the car outside. Beep, beep. It was exciting times, but no, it was a great thing, but was never going to go anywhere. No. It's not easy to build a racetrack and make it part of the community, which is, again, what we've done with Highlands. We've become a very important part of that community.
Yeah.
And we value that so much. I mean, people in the town of Cromwell are proud to take their visitors to Highlands, to the cafe, to go to the toilets, go to the loo with a view, and all of that stuff. It's marvellous.
Well, it's nice to see people take pride in their, in a business, because it's an investment for one thing, but it's something that people should be proud of.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
Extra little bit of effort.
Yep.
I mean, for example, right? I was up at Queensland Raceway yesterday, and there was one of the casual labourer guys, nice guy, young guy, water blasting down what used to be the cafe, which is now going to be a real cafe, whatever. And he was water blasting down the roof, and so there was all this wet shit lying on the concrete floor. Okay, it's a construction site, so it doesn't matter, I guess. But I said, and he was packing up. And I said, mate, no, just reset that thing, get the hose back onto it, start it back up, and wash off that dirt, wash it into the grass. I mean, it's best in the grass, it'll be fine. And he did that, and I said, mate, how much better does that look? He said, yeah, it does. I said, mate, a little bit more effort in your life, and your boss, whoever your boss is, be it your customers or you're the boss or fucking they're the boss, they will see that, and you'll be compensated for that.
Yep.
Either in promotion or more money or get another job, whatever it is. A little bit more effort. Don't fucking stop before the finish line.
Yep.
Yeah.
How'd he go? Did he take it
No,
on
he was
board?
good, man.
He's good?
No,
Yep.
he's good. He's like and this is what I find nowadays. You can't expect a teenager or a young person to know all that stuff, and you can't give them a book to read about it. It's not the same. If you can show them how to do something, it's much better, and if they appreciate it more as well.
Yeah.
And they learn so much faster.
If you were to forecast something, say we've got a round of the bikes here,
Mm-hmm.
if there was a promoter that could do something in New Zealand for Australian superbikes, would that be something that would happen at one of the tracks over there potentially?
Yeah, absolutely. We're ahead of the game, mate. We're ahead of you.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
It'd be great though, like
Absolutely.
especially as the
And
world opens up.
Mate, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 3-hour flight to New Zealand
Yeah, it's easy.
from here. You get 12 bikes in a container or 10 bikes in whatever it is.
Yep.
Absolutely. So my thing with Australian categories coming to New Zealand, we have an internal policy where we can help with the freight bill. So we're happy to contribute to the freight for the guys because, I know how much it costs to take a car from here to Perth or here to Darwin or here to bloody Phillip Island even.
Yep.
Or here to Cairns. It
anywhere.
costs a bit. I know, but
Yep.
it costs a bit of money. But New Zealand's not that difficult.
No.
Like, you stick them in a container, forget about them for a week, and pick them up at the other side. And we can organise and facilitate all of that stuff to make it easy. And, whilst I had the Australian GT series, we obviously did that for a few years.
Yep.
Over to Highlands. And, I would be talking to, I think the TA2 guys are talking to us at the moment as well. Because you're right, as the world opens up, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the facilities are worth it too.
Yeah, well, I think,
you want to travel to those.
Look, I think if you want to go to Pukekohe, then just go and stay in a motel and eat the KFC and go home again. Hampton Downs, that's just another racetrack. I think it's like Eastern Creek, Phillip Island. It's just an industrial racetrack. That's what it is. It's a racetrack.
Yep.
Whereas Taupo and Highlands are a wee bit different. Taupo's a place that you can go to and spend the weekend and take the missus and kids and whatever else. And, there's lots of things to do there that you wouldn't normally do. And it's a lovely spot, And obviously Queenstown is probably one of the best resorts in the world.
For sure.
So, anything, either Highlands or Taupo, makes a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, I've spoken to the V8s about a double header at Hampton Downs one week and Taupo the next, but that's a big ask. I don't know if that'll ever happen.
It would make, like, obviously the Hamilton street circuit. Like, it makes sense to have 2 rounds over a period of time. Like, it's such an investment for one weekend.
It would, yeah. And it's definitely something that to be fair, it's definitely something that New Zealand tourism would be interested in too.
Yeah.
So, we'll see what happens. But, so many things change so quickly. I mean, 3 years ago, we didn't even know what COVID was or even a pandemic.
No.
My dad lived and died in a pandemic-free world. It's 100 years since we had the last one, but I don't even know if it's a pandemic anymore. I mean, it seems to be, not that we want to get onto the subject, but, we've done our bit. We've been vaccinated. Most people have done the right thing, been vaccinated. The deal was we get vaccinated, we open up.
Yeah, freedoms.
And it's I don't know. It doesn't seem to be that simple, but we're all getting fed up of it, I'm sure.
For sure. You've invested.
The police will be round to my house tonight. I'll be arrested.
Probably. This will probably get cancelled. You've invested so much in different classes throughout motorsport.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Is it a love, or is it Is it business and love? Because you look at the GT stuff.
Yeah, well, no, but even Carrera Cup.
Yep.
I mean, I was the guy. No, well, there was 4 of us in the very beginning.
Really?
Yeah, there was 4 of us. We all put in 25 grand or something. It was Jeff Morgan, myself, a guy called David Skaysbrook, and a guy called Tim Pritchard. And we all had elements that we could bring to the table to make the deal work. But after the first round at the Grand Prix, where I think I finished 5th, all the other guys, I think David Skaysbrook wrote his car off. I think Jeff Morgan finished somewhere 20th, or whatever. Pritchard finished 25th, whatever. They all got the shits because, they'd all been used to driving Porsches that were slightly modified to their own specs. But along came these Carrera Cup cars that were all equal.
Right.
And it really sort of leveled the playing field a wee bit. And they got the shits and they got fed up and they didn't want to do it anymore. So I bought it from them and or paid them out. And then I got a guy called Jamie Blakey to come and help me run it because I didn't have the time. But together we grew the thing and it was quite well respected. I think at that time we had 32 cars on the grid, which I think they're just going to pip it this year or whatever it is they're going to do this year. But, so I started off Carrera Cup in Australia and did that for 6 or 8 years. I can't quite remember. In the end, I just got fed up with it, to be honest. It was the only way to pass somebody was to outbrake them, and that usually meant fucking crashing into them. So it wasn't enjoyable anymore. And then, of course, I got out of that and I thought I'll have a break for a while. But then a friend, Dean Grant, phoned me up and said, this GT racing's really good. And so I bought an Aston Martin. I loved it. Yep. What a difference, from Porsche Carrera Cup, Aston Martin. I loved it. It had flames coming out the back and it was cool. And I was competitive, again, it was good. And I enjoyed that. And Martin Wag and his daughter Rachel ran it they had the series. But it wasn't FIA run by the rules, and so it was a wee bit. It would change, the rules would change to suit the track or whatever, to suit the people, personnel. So it was getting out of hand, and then we had a revolt one day at Eastern Creek, and all the drivers didn't go. There was we were all just unhappy with the way it was being run, and Martin just had the shits with it, and so I phoned him up and said, mate, you've got to change this or it's going to kill you. Rachel was crying, it's just not right. We've got to do something about it. And he said, do you want to buy it? I said, not really, but yeah, well, if it means a good thing. So I think I bought GTs to try and fix it.
Yep.
And fix it we did, and caused a few ripples along the way with V8s and Porsche Carrera Cup and all that stuff. So GTs were really booming. And what happened in GTs was that I didn't mind sharing the success with the competitors. But prize money, we were talking, let's do this, let's go to New Zealand. We're doing all this stuff that was different and funky. But some of the competitors were staunch and said, no, we want to be with the V8s and we want to do the TV thing and we want to do this. And really, and my own eldest daughter was suffering from cancer at the time. So I was really in a bad spot. I just had enough. I had the shits. And, for as good a job you can do, you can never satisfy everybody. And it only takes 3 people to piss you off. And that they did.
Yep.
And they never raced the next year. After we changed the rules to suit their demands, they didn't race the following year. So GTs kind of slipped away from me a wee bit. I lost interest completely.
Yeah.
And then Jim Manolis, the Pirelli guy, he wanted to buy it, and he bought it for whatever reason, and then, I don't know, changed things again, and it sort of faltered.
Yeah.
Went back into the hands of CAMS, and now ARG have got it. And I think they'll do a good job of it. And it's very unfortunate that the 12 hours been disrupted with COVID, because that was gathering momentum, if you like.
For sure, yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen this year. I don't think we're totally over COVID. I'm not quite sure. But we'll try and support it if it's going to go. And then, of course, Aussie race cars after that.
Yeah.
Well, Phil Ward had a meltdown at Queensland Raceway, actually.
Really?
Yeah, he was off the back of or he was 20th or something on the grid. And on the start, this is live television. And he went rogue, as Phil sometimes did. He's a great guy. And his family's great people. You know, his son, Brad, still works for me. And Phil just went rogue because there was oil on the track, and he drove from position 20 right up to the front. And it's live television, the guys didn't know what was happening.
Oh, no.
So basically, Aussie race cars got banned from racing at CAMS events, if you like.
Yeah.
And it's there was a bit of, look, I'm not a doctor or anything, but, you know, Phil was just stressed out. And he just had enough, done his bit, you know.
Yep.
Sometimes you've just done your bit, and, you know, that's it. And so I bought it from Phil and then totally changed, made the cars safer and more consistent. And I don't know how many we've sold, but that's a great little series. You know, I mean, it kind of flies beneath the radar a wee bit.
Yeah.
But when you're in there driving, geez, I can tell you that the top 10 guys are going hard.
Right.
Like, nobody's having that much fun. We're all going hard at each other. And
Are they fun to drive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I asked Paul Morris.
Yeah.
He reckons they're the best thing ever to drive. And they are. They're incredible. You can feel the front wheels lifting at the corners and stuff. And it's just, and, you know, it's if any category is there for the fun of it, that's the category.
Right.
Nobody's that serious, to be fair. We're all pretty good, but nobody's making a career out of it. You know, it's not like the Toyota 86 series where, you know,
You got
got
that
bash
goal.
of, yeah. I mean, none of that.
Mm.
You get a cup, guaranteed you'll get a cup once a year.
Perfect.
Yeah, in a sandwich or something. chocolate
bar.
frog or something. Yeah.
What happens to Lakeside?
Oh, well, you'd have to ask John Tetley that.
Does it improve, do you think? Like, obviously, it doesn't look like it has. Do you think it will?
I don't, look, I'm going to be, there's enough bloody people on Google Box that have got an opinion there that is uninformed, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Lakeside as a race track is past its use-by date. Absolutely. If you're going to have what I would call speed events there, you're running a risk that's unnecessary.
Yeah.
Right? There's no doubt of that. And I'll, you know, let any man challenge me on that. It would need, and I'm going to say it would need between $3 and $4 million spent on it just to make it safe so that you could sleep at night, right?
Yeah.
Now, I love it. Everybody loves Lakeside. I fucking love it. It's a great track to drive.
Yeah.
But it's just not safe anymore. The cars are going a whole lot quicker, and motorbikes go blimey. You know, like it's just the risk is too high, and the infrastructure is not up to stand. It's not where it needs to be. Right now, it doesn't belong to me. I've got no say in it, and it's just an opinion. But it's a well-founded opinion, and there's evidence to support all that. And, you know, I don't think, well, you know, CAMS won't, Motorsport Australia won't sanction it. WSA won't sanction it. Motorcycle Australia won't sanction it, you know, without massive money being spent. John chooses to run under his own sanctioning system, his own insurance, and it's John's risk. That's his thing.
Yeah.
But you know, I've had experience with insurance companies in my other commercial world, you know, of food manufacture or whatever. And my opinion of insurance companies is that if they can see a fucking crack in the wall that they can sneak through, they're through. They're gone. Yeah. And I know that, you know, like you have a duty of care. You have a responsibility to present a facility that's you know, up to standard. And if they thought, if anything happened and they thought there was an issue, it would be a difficult thing to deal with. And look, it doesn't need to get that far. Honestly, if John was to ask me, or if you're asking me, what would I do? I would have to spend some money on it. And John's got plenty of money. Don't think he hasn't. He's got plenty. You need to spend some money on it to at least bring it up to a safe standard that's acceptable. Spend some money on landscape. It's a beautiful setting. It'll never be houses, despite what people talk about houses and that. It's in the water catchment area of the lake, so it's never going to be houses, right?
Right.
So let's just take that one off the table for everybody. You need to, the noise issue won't go away, so John needs to manage that by, same as we do at Highlands. We have 16 noisy days a year. That's what we've got, and we manage it well. So, you need to work with the community and make it truly a historical park, and in a lovely setting with, good infrastructure. I'm not saying put a big glass tower, control tower on it. No, it needs to, this is my vision. It needs to be a period piece where it has that Goodwood feel to it once a year, like just have 2 events a year that involve some form of speed or racing or whatever. And the rest of the time, if it's presented well and the grass is mowed and everything's nice, other people will use it for, just what they call happy laps, people just driving around the track. And, I could see, like the Nurburgring, you can go there with your camper van and drive around the Nurburgring for 20 euros or something. You could go to Lakeside on a Sunday afternoon and pay $5 or $25 or whatever and do a couple of laps in your car. It's an experience. I mean, and this is going back to what I was saying before about people that build racetracks and have this vision of having big races and stuff. They're very difficult to make a living doing that.
For sure.
So you have to have another element, be it members or whatever other element you've got going in your business model to make it work.
Like you've been to Goodwood, you've been to Leadfoot. It's something you could have there.
Yeah.
Realistic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it would suit it so well.
Yeah.
And, we are more than happy, despite what everybody says on Gogglebox, we are more than happy to work with whoever owns Lakeside Park. It's just that sometimes John just is difficult to deal with, in my opinion, And I'm sure he would have an opinion about me. But we're both competitive people, and I suppose that sort of gets in the way a wee bit. But I don't want anybody to... It's a bit like, Quinny doesn't like motorbikes.
For sure, yeah.
Bullshit.
Yep.
Bullshit. And, I love Lakeside. I think it's a great thing. I would, if John was sensible... In fact, the original deal was buying both of them, right? But there's a big part of me that is thankful that we didn't do both of them at the same time. I'm actually quite involved with QR, getting that up to where it needs to be. That I would struggle to do Lakeside at the same time, right? So in a funny, quirky way, I'm happy if we get Queensland Raceway out of the way, get it sorted, get it up to a standard that we're all happy with, and then we could look at some other project like Lakeside or whatever. Now, John, with his feeling at the moment, he probably doesn't want to talk to me, or he whatever. But I'm always commercially open to and to be fair to him, he probably is too. So, I think we just let dust settle a wee bit, whatever happens, and just see where it takes us. But for sure, it's a great facility, great track, great history. All of that stuff just needs some loving care. And some serious loving care.
So we're safe for the future of car racing and bike racing in Queensland with Queensland Raceway?
And drifting, and road racing, and
plays,
happy laps,
happy
and
laps.
power plays, whatever. But here's the deal. I mean, I'll give you an example of the first week I owned Queensland Raceway. There was a race meeting going on, right? And the HQs were racing. And I was up on the bank watching. It's very enjoyable up on the bank at Queensland Raceway, sitting in your ute, having a look, the air conditioning on or whatever it is. It's quite all right. And anyway, the HQs were on, and the first couple of guys, they were making headway. They were inching away from the other guys, right? They were doing a good job. They were staying on the track. They were making, gapping the field, right? The first two guys. Everybody from third back were all trying to fucking race each other, and they were all going off the track. They were all braking late. They were all out of control, right?
Yep.
And they were losing place. They were losing. They were doing slower times than the guys at the front. So I spoke to them, right? I said, guys, you know, like, really, you're coming off the track at every corner, every lap. It's really not what you should be doing. You know, you need to respect the white line. That is the track limit.
Yep.
And that's, you know, when I go to race at Newcastle or Bathurst or Indy or wherever, the track limit's pretty fucking obvious. It's a concrete block, right? And if you go outside the track limits, you pay the price. But I think there has been a culture at Queensland Raceway of just running wide and stuff like that. So one of the first jobs that we did was to paint the white lines again, that you can see them, and the ripple strips and everything else.
Yep.
So, you know, there's no excuses. Same with the drift guys. Look, you know, I've been hammered with a little hammer about the drift guys, you know. Same story. You know, they call it dirt drops, right? They go off the track, they keep the boot in, and it wheel spins, dust flies up, mud, whatever it is.
Yep.
Ruins the edge of the track, ruins the bloody track for everybody else. I mean, they're not the only ones that are using the track, right? If they're doing it on Friday night, somebody's coming in Saturday morning to use the track.
Yep.
Right? So, and we've learned this in New Zealand as well, at Hampton Downs. Same deal, you know. I say to the drift guys, you've got 12 metres of asphalt all the way around Queensland Raceway. It doesn't go to 9 or 4 or anything. It's 12 metres all the way around. Your car's 2 metres wide. If you put it sideways, it's 5 metres wide. You've got plenty room, and a professional drifter, a proper drifter, can drift around Queensland Raceway without going off the track every lap, right?
Yep.
I've seen Mad Mike drift up Leadfoot.
Yeah.
How wide's that? 4 metres?
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
He drifts all the way up there, right?
Wow.
So, if you're a drifter, you can drift. If you can't keep it on 12 metres of track, you're simply a hoon. And you need to learn how to drift. And there's plenty of avenues at Queensland Raceway. In fact, we're developing programs now that will help guys become good drifters. And, you know, it's pretty simple. So until they can drift properly side by side and all that stuff, we're putting tires, truck tires, strategically placed.
Yep.
Now, they're not encroaching on the 12-metre mark. So you've still got 12 metres.
Yep.
But if you want to go outside the track, then you're probably going to damage your car more than you're going to damage the track. And that's the way it should be. I mean, I remember, 15, 20 years ago, hiring cars from Hertz in Tasmania. I'll probably get arrested later on. Hiring cars from Tasmania, Hertz,
Yep.
going to Simmons Plains, taking the number plates off and hooning around Simmons Plains, right? And delivering the car back to Hertz with no tyres, no brakes. There was a whole bunch of us doing it, not just at Simmons Plains, but elsewhere. You can't do that anymore. Hertz are on to you. Hertz could take 20 pictures of the car before you hire it, and if you bash it in any way, shape, or form, it costs you like $3,000 if you haven't insured it.
Yes.
So it's progress. It's what's happening. You know, like, people get an opportunity, they take advantage, they then think the advantage is the norm, and then somebody has to address it. And that's simply all that's happened at Queensland Raceway and Taupo and Hampton Downs.
So for that little bit of time, there's like a hailstorm of bad press comes, or bad comments come through of people, you know, saying, oh, he's restricting the track, or this is happening. But realistically, it's something you're just doing because of a reason.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm not a dummy. I'm an experienced guy that listens to all sides of the story,
Yep.
right? And then makes a commercial decision of how it can be better for everybody, or better for the business. And, you know, that's my job, I guess.
Plus
and
a
you know,
driver.
like, yeah, and people will always criticise you, mate. I mean, you're not going to travel through life without a bit of criticism. And obviously, the Google box has made it a whole lot easier for people
For sure.
to do that. And I would just, you know, they need to be informed before they have an opinion.
Yep.
It's the same as, you know, people that complain about something without a solution. You know, what's the point? You know,
Makes no sense.
We all see the fucking problem. What's the solution?
Yep.
That's the answer. You know that. So I don't complain about anything unless I've got a suggestion or a sort of a considered opinion.
Because one of the things we've fallen into as a society too, like you've worked hard to race at all these different tracks and good cars at these tracks. We've made massive runoff at every track around the world now. Mm-hmm. We've fallen into a thing where everyone just runs wide.
Yeah, but it's slow.
No consequence.
So what's the point? I mean, I don't quite get all that stuff.
No, it's annoying.
And the runoff is, you know, if you come unstuck or any of that stuff, that's what it's there for. It's not there to be used.
It's not extra track.
No, and there's a very good guy that I've met a couple of times in England, Dr. Jonathan Palmer.
Right.
He owns about, I don't know, 5 or 7 tracks in the UK. And he's very, very staunch on track limits. In fact, he's gone to the expense of putting sensors in and stuff like that. And he'll have none of it.
Yep.
And I agree with him.
For
you
sure.
know, you've got 12 metres, your car's 2 metres wide. What the hell? It would be far cheaper for us to build and maintain a track that was 4 metres wide. That's all you need.
Makes sense. And you've just done Targa. Like, you know the limits.
Yeah.
You know, if there's a limit there, that's where you know. So
absolutely.
We should leave that there, mate. This has been awesome.
I can feel a whole lot of trouble coming my way. But look, can I just say that I'm approachable
yes.
By anybody at any time, so long as you haven't got a knife in your hand or something. But I'm approachable for an opinion or a reason or any of that stuff. And I encourage people to understand more about what I'm doing before they... Look, I think that I don't read the Gogglebox thing much at all, but when I do read it, I'm very humbled by the compliments that I receive.
Yep.
And they far outweigh any negative stuff. So I'm in a happy place.
And you're hands-on. This is something I was going to say too. I was actually out there last week and I seen you driving around with a bunch of steel in the back of a car, and you're doing a lot of stuff there yourself.
Yeah, but I love it. I love that. I'm a working guy. I've got people that sit behind laptops and computers in the office and bundle.
Yep.
And they manage the day-to-day, you know, that kind of stuff. And I'm going in this afternoon to make a few decisions, I guess. But that's what they like doing. I don't like doing that. I like seeing things and doing stuff and touching stuff and getting into... Sometimes being a little bit naughty is not a bad thing. You know, like, I think, you know, my partner, Kate, she keeps telling me off for speeding a little bit on the road. And I'm not bad, but I'm maybe a bit naughty. That's how I would describe it. And, you know, every now and again, have a fucking Big Mac extra special meal with a hash brown. Be naughty. You don't have to eat bloody organic lettuce leaves to have a good life.
Go against the grain a bit. Mate, love it. Thank you so much for obviously coming in. I think we've addressed a fair few different things there that we need to as well. I don't think there's anything that's too spicy in there. I think it should be
look, another thing that I live by is if you tell the truth, it's a whole lot easier to remember. And because if you start telling lies, you can't remember who you told what to and everything else. So I embarrassingly sometimes have to tell the truth. And I don't shy away from anything. In the business world, there's a certain thought that you should hide your wealth, or, you know, be careful about how much money you tell people you've got or whatever. I don't share that view. I think if you've been successful, particularly if you started from nothing, if you started with 100 million and you've only got $1 million left, probably keep it quiet, right?
Yeah.
But if you go in reverse, I think be proud of it. And that's why I love the Americans. They love and they celebrate success like that. They think it's great. Whereas in Australia and New Zealand, and particularly in Scotland, it's the tall poppy thing comes out.
Yeah, it's annoying, isn't it?
Well, I don't fucking suffer it. I don't do it. I don't subscribe to that theory. I just keep going.
Just keep head down.
Yeah, and my problem, and this is going to sound really fucking weird to a lot of people, my problem now is dealing with the wealth that I've created. And, you know, my children are all well looked after. My grandchildren and the children that I care about, how do you deal with that without spoiling their lives? Because, you know, I inherited nothing, I got nothing, and I've had a great life. And I would hate if that was different. And, you know, so you've got to be very careful about how you disperse that or use it or what you use it for. So
I'm going to ask you one more thing. I was going to wrap this up.
No, you're not in the inheritance list.
No, I wasn't that.
No, right.
Nah.
Oh, sorry.
Does money excite you?
No. Most people will tell you, no, I don't do it for the money. No, I don't. And some of them are lying, right?
Yeah.
I don't do it for the money. I don't care. I've always been pretty good at that. I'm pretty good at making money. And it comes easy to me. And I'm happy to share with people how I've done it. And the first thing I'll tell you is there's no magic dust, right?
It worked.
I've worked, but made some good decisions, man. You know, like, and mix with good people. And make money. And don't be afraid of it. Be proud of it. You know, and happy to share any of that bloody stuff with anybody that's interested. But most people, to be fair, just want to know what the code is.
Yeah.
You know, could you just fucking shortcut that story? Just tell me the code and I'll get on with it. It doesn't work like that. Although I do tell, I'll be honest, I do tell a lot of young guys to go out and find a wealthy woman and marry her.
Just straight away.
Just
There's the code?
That's a code.
It's cheat code.
Yeah, that's it. There you are.
There we are.
There's going to be Google Box on that one.
We'll cut that one out. Nah, nothing's been cut. So, once again, thank you so much, Tony.
No, it's a pleasure, mate. Anytime.
And I look forward to seeing the venue change over the time. And as I say, been there more in 6 months than in the past 15 odd years. And it's amazing to see what's happened already.
Well, you want to base some of your podcasts out there once we get the corporate suite going and just, you know, because, you know, I think there'll be a lot of opportunity to speak to people who have done things in their life and stuff like that. I think it's a good thing. I think we need to share that.
For sure.
Because people do need to know how people have done it.
Yeah, and you need to know the truth. Yeah. Like, you don't need the whispers, I guess, you know?
No. And so I'm just going to, we're never going to finish this, but I'll just finish on this. Old Dick Johnson, who I love to bits.
Yep.
He's an absolute character, right? And still, he must be 80 now, surely. And he's still witty as, right? He's so funny when you get him up on stage. He's a crack. So we were he was out there at the weekend, or I was there, whatever was happening. We sort of connected together. And behind it, we were on the main straight there, just outside the tower. And behind the thing, it says Dick Johnson Straight, right? In sort of pale blue, shitty paint, fucking whatever, right? And I just said, Dick, you know, will you come back in July and we're going to rename this straight once we've got the corporate thing up and everything else? And he was delighted. And he said, absolutely. And those are the things that we should be doing.
For sure.
You know, like just recognising Dick and getting him up on stage and you know, having a bunch of people around listening to what he has to say, because he's a hoot. Like when he gets going, because in Hampton Downs I had him and John Bow and Paul Radisich and all those guys up on stage, and it was such a hoot. Like nobody wanted to stop the evening. Like it was midnight and it's getting late, people. But it was so interesting to listen to these guys.
Well, the stories they have, like your Jim Richards, your Paul Radisich and that, like what they've gone through, it's huge.
Yeah.
And hands-on. A lot of them too, like they've come through a time where they're very, very hands-on.
Absolutely. And the bullshit lies that they tell each other and all the rest of it,
Perfect.
It's good. It's all part of the game.
Lovely. Mate, we'll end it here because we will get another story. But thank you once again. Appreciate it. That's all we have time for in today's show. If you get the chance, head over to YouTube and hit subscribe on the Talk and Chatter page. Also, head over to iTunes and give us a star rating and a review there. It all helps to get the podcast out there. A big thank you goes to everyone that's been doing this already, and we'll be back with another show soon.